ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਥੀ ਨੂੰ HIV ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਨੌਕਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਕੱਢਣ ਲੱਗਿਆ।
ਕੰਪਨੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿਧਰੇ ਗਲਤੀ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਕਰ ਲੈਣ। ਆਹ ਦੇਖੋ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ HIV ਏਡਜ਼ ਐਕਟ 2017 ਅਧੀਨ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਨਿਯਮ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ HIV ਪੀੜਿਤ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ, ਸਿਹਤ, ਰੋਜ਼ਗਾਰ ਜਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਸਮਾਜਿਕ ਖੇਤਰ 'ਚ ਵਿਤਕਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਇਤ ਦੇ ਨਿਪਟਾਰੇ ਲਈ ਸਿਵਲ ਸਰਜਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਓਮਬਡਸਮੈਨ ਨਿਯੁਕਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਜੋ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਇਤ ਮਿਲਣ ਤੇ 30 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਨਿਰਦੇਸ਼ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ HIV ਪੀੜਿਤ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦਿਵਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ।
Hey viewers, you are watching the Savera and I'm Manpreet Kaur. In a significant escalation of its oil strategy toward Venezuela, the United States military has seized a 7th oil tanker linked to Venezuelan crude, the Pentagon's and US Southern Command announced today. The move is part of the Trump administration's broader efforts to assert controls over Venezuelan's oil production, shipping and global distributions as political tensions in the regions remain high. The latest vessels, identified as the motor vessel Sangita, was apprehended without incident in the Caribbean Sea, according to US military officials. Southern Command said that the tanker was operating in defense of a US declared quarantines on sanctions vessels and was taking oil from Venezuela in violations of restrictions imposed by Washington. This is the 7th such seizures of a tanker linked to Venezuela's oil since December 10, 2025, when the US began intercepting vessels suspected of shipping crude in ways that violate sanctions or circums. Most of the seizures have taken place in the Caribbean regions, with one earlier vessel intercepted in the North Atlantic. US officials have made no immediate comments beyond the initial military announcement, but the seizures reflect the Trump administration's ongoing efforts to enforce a maritime blockade and supply chain quarantine of tankers tied to Venezuela's production, which holds some of the world's largest proven oil reserves. Venezuela's oil reserves are estimated at roughly 17% of the global total, making them a highly strategic asset in global energy markets. The seizure comes amid a sweeping US policy shift following a military operations on January 3, 2026, in which Venezuelan's President Nicolas Maduro was captured in a surprise pre-dawn raid and taken to the United States, where he now faces criminal charges. Since then, the Trump administration has been moving to regulate the very foundations of Venezuela's energy sector, its crude oil and downstream distributions. In recent statements, President Trump highlighted the scales of US involvements in Venezuela's oil. Officials say the United States has already taken tens of millions of barrels of oil from Venezuela sources and is selling them on global market to influence energy prices and supply dynamics. Trump has proposed a $100 billion investment plan aimed at rebuilding Venezuela's dilapidated oil infrastructures and expanding his production capacity under American oversight. These aggressive moves have had noticeable effect on global markets and geopolitical alliance. Venezuelan oil exports to traditional buyers, especially China, are reportedly on the decline as the US blockade and seizures disrupt established shipping routes and contracts. Observers say the blockade's impact could ripple through global energy systems if sustained. Inside Washington, officials have defended the tanker seizures as lawful actions intended to enforce US sanctions and prevent the illicit transports of Venezuelan crude. They argue that regulations who controls Venezuela's oil, a major commodity in global energy trade, is a strategic priority and a key component of wider efforts to stabilize the region. However, critics have raised concerns about the legality of using military forces to enforce economic sanctions and the implications for international maritime law. Venezuela's interim leadership and allied nations have decried the seizures as violations of sovereignty and have called for diplomatic and legal responses. Analysis says this growth confrontations could set precedents in global sources security disputes. The Trump administration's continued maritime operations in the Caribbean and beyond suggest that US involvement in Venezuela oil affairs is likely to remain a defining element of international energy politics for months to come. That's all for now. Stay tuned with us for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe our channel.